Do you really know how exhausting it is to work in Chinese factories? Employees often work more than 10 hours a day, enduring insults and physical abuse. They work 80 hours a week, repeating the same tasks over and over, working overtime until their hands cramp. This exploitation is the reality of China's sweatshops. The video shows a Shein production facility in Guangzhou, a well-known hub for China's cheap shopping platforms. The environment features low ceilings, piles of garbage scattered around, cheap products, and a crude punch-in clock system, all pointing to the harsh work conditions faced by the employees. The dining conditions for workers are equally appalling. Garbage litters a dirty cement floor, and only a few makeshift tables and chairs are available. Some workers have no choice but to stand while eating, a stark contrast to proper factory cafeterias. In recent years, Shein's rapid rise in the cross-border fashion e-commerce industry has sparked significant controversy. Recently, the BBC reported that garment workers in Shein's Guangzhou supply chain work around 75 hours a week, violating China's labor laws. According to the BBC, reporters visited 10 factories known as Shein villages and interviewed over 20 workers. Most workers revealed they only get one day off a month, working shifts from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Even after 10 p.m., sewing machines hum, and workers remain bent over their stations as truckloads of fabric continue to arrive. One worker told the BBC, "If a month has 31 days, I work all 31 days." Another worker, a woman from Jiangxi, explained that wages are paid per piece. For each t-shirt she makes, she earns between 1 and 2 yuan. She typically works 10 to 12 hours a day, producing around 12 shirts per hour. This means she completes approximately 120 to 144 pieces daily, earning just 120 to 288 yuan a day in total profit, equivalent to 16 to 40 US dollars. The woman also shared that she works at least 3 hours on Sundays because she and her husband earn so little, but the cost of living is too high. She hopes to earn enough money to support her 2 children left behind in their hometown, ensuring they grow up with adequate food and clothing. One commenter shared their experience of working at Shein as a stock clerk for a month. She worked 10 hours a day, walked 50,000 steps daily from start to finish, with almost no breaks. After 26 days of work, she earned only 6,000 yuan for the month, or 800 US dollars. According to her, the workers at Shein push themselves to their physical limits. Another commenter remarked, "With such intense work, the monthly salary should exceed 10,000 yuan, but it's only 6,000. This is outrageous exploitation." The BBC reported that Shein's success lies in its affordable prices and ample inventory. Known for its low prices, the average item on Shein in the UK costs around £8, with frequent discounts and promotions. However, these low prices are achieved through methods such as minimizing profits, underpricing competitors to dominate the market, leveraging significant capital for better supplier negotiation, and relying on high volumes to gain pricing advantages. Despite this, Shein continues to operate profitably, raising questions from governments and consumers about its practices. For years, critics have suggested that forced labor and suppressed wages may underpin its competitive pricing. In 2022, Shein reported profits of 700 million US dollars, down from 1.1 billion in the previous year, but still marking its 4th consecutive year of profitability. Between 2017 and 2020, Shein's revenue grew at an average annual compound growth rate of 180%, reaching 10 billion US dollars in 2020. By 2022, its gross merchandise value hit $30 billion, with projections to double to nearly $60 billion by 2025 and surpass $100 billion by 2027. However, recent revelations about Shein's substandard factories and low-wage labor have shed light on the question, how is Shein able to make such massive profits? For instance, the BBC discovered that standard working hours in Shein factories appear to be from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., totaling approximately 14 hours a day. This finding aligns with a report from the Swiss advocacy group Public Eye, which interviewed 13 workers employed at Shein. According to the report, many workers were overworked, putting in excessive overtime hours. After these long hours, workers earned a basic wage of 2,400 yuan, 327 US dollars without overtime pay, far below the living wage of 6,512 yuan identified by the Asia Floor Wage Alliance. The interviewed workers earned a total monthly wage of between 4,000 and 10,000 yuan. David Hatchfield of the Asia Floor Wage Alliance commented, "These hours are not unusual, but it's clear that it's illegal and it violates basic human rights. It's an extreme form of exploitation, and this needs to be visible. Chinese labor laws stipulate that the average work week should not exceed 44 hours and that workers must have at least one day off per week. Employers may extend working hours only under special circumstances. However, the situation at Shein suggests no justifiable reason for maintaining such excessive overtime across its workforce. For many people, the scale and pace of Shein's production raise significant concerns. Sheng Lu, a professor of fashion and apparel studies at the University of Delaware, noted that from December 2022 to December 2023, Shein offered 1.5 million stock-keeping units, SKUs, which typically represent unique specifications, colors, or styles. In comparison, Zara offered only 40,000 SKUs during the same period, while H&M provided 23,000. Moreover, Shein's prices were typically 40 to 60% lower than its competitors. Lu remarked that Shein's practices nearly double the operational costs of traditional fast fashion retailers. Considering the company's pricing, one must ask, how much are they actually paying the workers involved in production? By 2021, Shein had relocated its headquarters to Singapore, a popular destination for Chinese companies seeking to attract international consumers and evade oversight from Chinese authorities. However, the majority of Shein's clothing continues to be produced through third-party suppliers in China, where labor conditions are poor and workplace inspections are challenging, resulting in limited regulations of Shein's manufacturing operations. In response, the UK Parliament has begun inquiries into labor rights issues within the supply chains of Chinese fast fashion retailers, which also include another Chinese company, Temu, the cross-border shopping platform under Pinduoduo. According to Reuters, the UK's Business and Trade Committee has requested Shein's participation in a parliamentary hearing scheduled for January 7 as part of a labor rights investigation initiated in October. Chaired by former Labour Cabinet Minister Liam Byrne, the committee aims to examine the protection of UK workers under the nation's labor laws and prevent imports from countries like China that fail to meet acceptable labor standards. Concerns include long working hours, low wages, and unsafe working conditions. According to updates from the committee's website, Yinan Zhu, Shein's General Counsel for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa region, has been summoned to testify at the hearing. Additionally, Stephen Heery, Temu's Senior Legal Counsel, and Leonard Klenner, its Senior Compliance Manager, have also been asked to provide testimony. Other invited attendees include Margaret Beals, Director of UK's Labour Market Enforcement, and Eleanor Lyons, the Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner. While Shein declined to comment on the hearing, Temu did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for remarks. Shein's invitation to the UK Parliament stems from its ongoing efforts to list on the London Stock Exchange. Despite its strong financial performance, including substantial international funding from IDG Capital, Sequoia Capital, and Tiger Global Management, Shein has faced increasing scrutiny over its internal operations and supply chain practices. Challenges include strict supply chain audits, significant tax obligations that raise operating costs, and enhanced parcel inspections that impact logistics efficiency. As an ultra-large online platform, Shein faces additional regulatory pressure. In June last year, the UK-based human rights group Stop Uyghur Genocide pursued legal action to block Shein's London Stock Exchange listing plans, accusing its suppliers of using forced labor from Uyghur populations. In response, Shein reiterated its zero-tolerance policy towards forced labor and its commitment to respecting human rights. The latest BBC report has fully exposed the exploitative practices underpinning the immense profits of Shein, confirming long-held international suspicions about the company. Beyond accusations of poor working conditions in Chinese factories and forced labor in its supply chain, Shein faces numerous other controversies. Shein has repeatedly been accused of plagiarizing designs from other brands. For example, German illustrator Tina Menzel noticed in 2019 that her designs were being sold on Shein's platform without permission. These included brooches, t-shirts, and phone cases, with some even bearing her name. After contacting Shein, she received a response from someone identifying as Bonnie Liu, who apologized and admitted, stating that due to their extensive product catalog and large buyer base, it's challenging to identify all potential infringements. Menzel discovered that 66 t-shirts and 2 phone cases featuring her designs have been sold for a total of $552. Shein offered her $600 in compensation requested to continue using her designs, which she declined. Later, Shein proposed a contract demanding that she refrain from publicly criticizing the company. Over the past decade, independent artists and other well-known brands have complained that Shein's profit-driven exploitation of their work. In the US and elsewhere, Shein faces dozens of lawsuits from brands such as Oakley and H&M. Notably, H&M has accused Shein of illegally copying its designs in nearly 100 cases. In December 2023, Temu filed a lawsuit in Washington, D.C., accusing Shein of anti-competitive practices. In August 2024, Shein countersued Temu, alleging that one of Temu's employees has stolen its trade secrets. The rivalry between these two Chinese shopping platforms on the international stage has bewildered the public. As a fast fashion brand, Shein's environmental footprint has also drawn scrutiny. The industry is notorious for its short production cycles and excessive waste. In 2022, Greenpeace Germany conducted a study, purchasing dozens of men's, women's, and children's clothing items and shoes from Shein's European website. Independent analysis revealed that 15% of the tested items contained harmful chemicals exceeding EU standards, and 32% had worrying levels of such substances. In June 2023, the activist group Place Publique addressed a letter to France's economy minister, Bruno Le Maire, highlighting the environmental harm caused by Shein's ultra-cheap clothing, such as €2 t-shirts and €9 dresses, which undermines sustainability. The group criticized Shein for its heavy use of polyester, derived from processed petroleum and natural gas. Synthetic garments release microplastic fibers during washing, which flow into the ocean and contaminate marine life. If this business model continues unchecked, the fast fashion industry's carbon footprint, currently 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions, could surge to 26% by 2050. Activists have urged France to implement immediate legislative and regulatory measures to address the fast fashion industry, particularly Shein. Given Shein's practice of listing 8,000 new items daily, which encourages overconsumption, they have also called for its website to be delisted or banned. To cut costs, Shein has exploited loopholes in international trade policies. Trade expert McLaughlin noted that certain U.S. regulations seem almost tailor-made to allow Shein's products to bypass scrutiny upon entering the country. The de minimis provision in U.S. trade law allows imports valued under $800 to enter the U.S. duty-free with minimal inspection. Originally capped at $200, the limit was raised in 2016, triggering a surge in foreign products entering the U.S. market. After tariffs were imposed on Chinese goods in 2018, the use of this provision expanded further. Exporters discovered they could divide products into smaller packages below the threshold and then ship them duty-free to the U.S. Between 2018 and 2021, small package imports to the U.S. increased by 88%. U.S. Customs and Border Protection has warned that the sheer volume of small packages, coupled with missing information about contents or importers, has made screening and detecting prohibited items more challenging. Trade consultant Charles Bonneau remarked that it's not just about avoiding tariffs. Importers face no accountability. This highlights how Shein avoids taxes while evading responsibility for its products. The U.S. House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party highlighted this issue in its June 2023 report. For example, in 2022, Gap paid $700 million in import duties, and H&M paid $205 million, while Shein and Temu paid nothing. Republican Representative Mike Gallagher commented that this loophole shields Shein and Temu from scrutiny over forced labor allegations. In response, the Department of Homeland Security announced new measures to curb illegal textile imports, including enhanced screening of small packages and increased physical inspections. Bipartisan lawmakers have introduced 4 bills to tighten de minimis regulations, including banning such provisions for Chinese imports. However, progress on these bills has been slow over the past 2 years. Domestically and abroad, cases of Chinese companies exploiting workers are widespread. On January 17th, a video revealed substandard living conditions for workers at the Qingshan steel plant in Indonesia. Workers lived in cramped, basic shipping containers, with 4 workers sharing bunk beds in a single container. In late 2024, reports surfaced of labor abuse by Chinese companies in Brazil and Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, Chinese mining companies exploit local resources, including gold, coal, and lithium, but at a heavy cost to the workers. According to accounts from Zimbabwean laborers reported by Voice of America, exploitation is rampant. Workers allege meager wages, excessive hours, degrading treatment, physical violence, and racial discrimination, unsafe conditions, and neglect of basic health protections. Some workers reported being threatened with firearms during security checks and routinely subjected to verbal abuse. Japet Lupala, former chairman of the Construction and Mining Workers Union, recounted his own experience of being forced out of his job after advocating for workers' rights. Lupala, a welder who worked for the company for 4 years, said, "When I began speaking out for workers, everything changed. I was suddenly accused of fabricated charges, and a senior manager told me it was because of my activism. For workers in Zimbabwe, the exploitation they face is severe, yet for Chinese workers, such conditions have become commonplace."
为什么90%的工厂都在犯罪，却没有人管？
Why are 90% of factories breaking the law, and no one is doing anything about it? I don't understand why labor laws established 100 years ago mandated a 5-day, 8-hour work week with weekends off, yet even after a century, it still hasn't been implemented. Today, 99% of companies still enforce 12-hour shifts with 2 rotating teams. To chase higher productivity, capitalists extend workers' hours, treating it as a means to maximize profits. Employers would rather break labor laws than spend a single extra penny. Why is that? It's because the penalties are too lenient and the cost of violating the law is too low. They'd rather pay the fines than give you a raise. When will we truly achieve a 5-day, 8-hour work week? Will we have to wait another 100 years?